Hey everybody. I forgot to touch on this in the Tree of Life, Tree of Good, Evil, and the Tree of Life. I forgot to actually touch on this, and I wanted to do that before I put this so-called teaching to bed. This is not going to be a long video. This will be very quick, but I wanted to show something very, very important as I wrap this completely tree type understanding up. God tells us that we can see Him in His creation. We are without excuse. His creation shows who He is. We are part of His creation, no different than the trees are part of His creation, no different than the animals, etc., etc. The further away that we live in this age, the further away we get away from nature, get away from His creation. We create new companions with things that are made by man versus things that are made by God. And therefore we lose our connection to His creation. He is seen in all of His creation. And what I want to show today very quickly is I want to give you the end of this study, the end of this understanding, and show you that it's not just about trees, and it's not just about what we've been talking about in regards to the figs and all these sort of things, okay? It all has to do with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is what is shown to us over and over and over and over again in our lives. And we go blind to it because we are carnal, because we don't see, we don't understand. But He puts it in front of us. And I'm going to show you something that you're going to be without excuse after seeing this video. There's two types of trees in this world that we understand most out of all people that live in the Northern Hemisphere, growing up, whatever. That is the coniferous tree and the deciduous tree. I don't even know how to say it properly. Now, these two trees represent God's creation. It represents the so-called garden moment from the beginning of time with Adam and Eve. You're looking at a deciduous tree, which is basically a hardwood tree, maples, poplars, all those things. And then here is the evergreen or coniferous tree. Okay? This is where they get their famous Christmas tree, which is a complete mockery of what this actually means. So you have the deciduous tree, which is the maple, the hardwood trees, and then you have the evergreen coniferous trees. One represents the tree of life, and the other one represents the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or man himself. Let's watch this video before I finish off on what my teaching has all been about. This is the 4-season cycle of the deciduous tree. This represents mankind in the creation from the fall of Adam and Eve. It's the cycle of life that is played out before your eyes every single day, every single season, for your entire life, your parents' entire life, your grandparents' entire life, all there to show you exactly who you are and how this cycle of life continues after you're gone. And of course, I'm not in the internet, which I forgot about, and it's not going to finish because I can't stay on the internet because these videos don't get uploaded for some reason. But you can see from the pictures, it goes naked. When it hits the winter, it becomes naked and all the leaves and fruit die. This is the representation of man that has chosen to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The cycle of man's life. Spring, it is born, the Passover. It grows strong in the summer. And as it gets closer to winter, it fades away, withers away, and then it dies throughout the dark winter. But the tree still stands naked, because the tree is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and mankind has chosen to eat from that. Therefore, the tree will always be naked. But these leaves that are on it are a representation of man and his cycle in life, and how he continues to eat from this tree, and the tree is always naked, always stands, but has no fruit on it until the next cycle. Cycle after cycle after cycle. Life, death. Death, life. Let me tell you some things here quickly about this tree. Where does it come from? What does the word come from? It comes from the Latin word, of course, meaning to fall down, or the fall, or they fell. Also, falling down at a certain stage of existence. Is that not what's Adam and Eve happened within the terms of their existence? They fell down at a certain point. They fell away. They were, what were they? They were sent away out of the garden, so-called garden. It comes from the word desitir, meaning to cut off. Deciduous means shedding its leaves annually or falling off at maturity. You see, Jesus Christ had to come as a fleshly man, and what did he do? He lived himself a life of flesh. He was part of this cycle of life, and therefore he shed his blood, entered into the earth, and then was resurrected and completed the complete cycle, defeating death. And then the representation of him and the Father, of course, would be the coniferous tree or the evergreen tree, which means it's always green, it's full of life, it's self-renewing, it exists and never dies. In the Latin, where the word coniferous comes from, it comes from conifer, which means cone-bearing, true cones. What is a cone? It has a base and it has an apex. It forms a triangle or a cone. The cone is the earth. The apex is where God dwells, looking down upon earth. And when this is inverted and it goes the other way, you have who at the very end of the bottom and who in the middle, going down and up, down and up, down and up. Okay? This tree is erect. Pine cones come from the fruit of this tree. And what does the pine cone represent? The pineal gland. Pineal gland. This is why the ancient Egyptians always had the pineal gland in their hand, and they would put it on the forehead of the man before he died as he went into the into the abyss, into the world, because it was a representation that the cone, which is cone bearing, true bearing, okay, carrier, meant that they were to live forever in their understanding because they pulled it from this. This is what this stuff means. This is why I am pushing the understanding of what this is in your entire life. You are without excuse seeing these things. Here's a time lapse of the coniferous evergreen tree. You ready? It's starting now. Nothing's changed, has it? Nothing's changed. It changes not. What did God say? I change not. What did Jesus say? I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. This is what you're looking at, guys. Versus this fact tree, as I call it, the broad and wide tree, where birds of the air can dwell, which we understand what birds of the air means. This tree is also called a hardwood tree. Why is it called a hardwood tree? That's interesting. Men's hearts are cold. Men's hearts are hard. They're hard to deal with. Men's minds are hard and dark. What's the preferred wood to burn? Well, of course, that's hardwood is the preferred choice wood to burn. Put this stuff together, guys. What is the coniferous tree? Well, of course, it's the soft wood, representing a soft heart, full of love and compassion and kindness and meekness, representing Jesus Christ and God the Father. It changes not. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And it produces the pine cone and cones alike, true cones, higher mind, higher consciousness. When your eye is single, your life is light. The self-existent one, the one that never dies, the one that bears much fruit, carries much fruit. The true cones, the true life, versus the one that goes and comes, springs forth and dies, spring forth and dies. But this tree stays forever. And it's brought back to its natural form in the darkness and winter, which is naked. Naked you came into this world, and naked you will return, because of the choice of the beginning, which was to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The cycle of life, right before your eyes. And this is why, another representation of why Jesus came in the flesh, to fulfill this cycle and to be mature and to die and plant seeds to everlasting life. No different than what this tree does. Sheds its leaves or sheds its fruit annually to reproduce the next year. The continuous cycle of the carnal flesh life that man has been stuck in versus the one that changes not. Pretty wild to look at this in the eyes of trees, but it all has to do with those two so-called trees from the beginning and how the man has fallen completely. Thank you.